Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Cilinix Crypto, and welcome to this new, well, I would almost call it an emergency update on the crypto markets, but we're going to do a full update here. We'll talk about the different scenarios, we'll talk about some important levels for Bitcoin, but also for some other altcoins, but more on that later. But obviously, we have to start off with the news, with the fundamentals, because at this point of time, I mean, you go over all the news websites right now, and you're thinking, well, why are we rallying like this? Like, there's nothing major going on that's pushing the price up this much, or that is justifying a push like this. And I agree slightly, but there are, of course, forces right now in play that do push up the price. So that's what I wanted to start off with. I mean, what I said this morning and what we observed yesterday is that whoever it is, there is some sort of entity buying up quite a lot of Bitcoin. All right, and that's not only visible with the volume. The volume right now is decent, right? $39.6 billion. Like last year, that was very high, and of course, because we had November, we had December, that looks relatively lower, but that's still a lot of volume. And then at the same point of time, we see a massive Coinbase Bitcoin premium. Right, we haven't seen a premium like this, and I cannot even remember the last time we had a premium like this. Maybe during that crypto reserve announcement, right? But so some entity, some fund, some person is pushing up Bitcoin a lot. Whether that's Michael Saylor or not, I would say no. Usually he buys a little bit later, and his price impact or the impact of his buys is usually also slightly lower. And then look, we had that yesterday that turned into today. Today we had that independent bidding going on again. But then if you take a look at the fundamentals, which I'll quickly grab my stocks chart here, you can see that the S&P 500, after bouncing from support here, which it already bounced from this morning, is also going up. So US equities are going up. The volatility index is going down. US bond yields have dropped down slightly, so that means that some more stability is going into the markets. Even though there's no massive news, that still matters, right? So then you get some sort of a perfect storm here of Bitcoin technically already being bullish. We've talked about getting into that 90,000 level before, but so technically we already were strong. And then you get, some entity buying into Bitcoin in combination with some relief for US equities. And that's the perfect storm pushing Bitcoin up. Now, ultimately, we have to zoom out though, right? So let's talk a little bit more about Bitcoin specifically, and then also about altcoins, because I also want to talk about whether this is the start of some sort of a massive uptrend, massive rally for altcoins. In totality. And I don't think, look, I think it's too early to call that, all right? Because Bitcoin at this point of time, it's rallying, but ultimately we're almost at major resistance. And I'm not sure, some sort of sound just went off. I'm not sure what that is. But we're near a major resistance level, right? And then at the same point of time, you can see the open interest is absolutely rallying as well. Volume is high, but is the volume high enough to break out? In my opinion, no. So short term, I still think we're incredibly bullish. I mean, if you go to the 1 hour time frame here, we're losing some volume, but the highest volume came in over the last hour, over the last 2 hours. So short term, I still think we're going higher, but at least initially, I do expect resistance from this area right here between 94 and 92,000. All right, that's the main level I'm looking at. And then from that resistance, and I'll try to keep you updated on that as soon as I can, from that resistance, look, if we're going to be able to hold a level like 89, 88,000 as support, maybe then we can break out. If we get some other positive fundamentals, if the S&P 500 keeps recovering, maybe then we can break out of that. But short term, looking specifically at Bitcoin, I would say it's most likely we'll get up there, but that from there we will drop back down at least to 89, 88,000, and from there we'll see again. Now, talking about altcoins specifically, before we talk about, talking about altcoins generally, before talking about some individually, which I wanted to cover, we're going to cover the major ones, because that's where most people are interested in. If you take a look at others, which is the altcoin index, basically, what you can see right here is that historically, the main level we needed to break for really bullish times to kick in was this level right here at $240 and $230 billion. And as you can see at this point of time, short term, same for Bitcoin, we still have some space to rally into that. But to break out of that without getting resistance there first, like historically, that has never happened, right? So for altcoins, same thing. I think short term we can expect some more momentum for those generally, but then I do expect some sort of a pullback, at least back into $210 billion, where we have the monthly POC. So that's what the market looks like to me. We have a lot of momentum right now. We have some fundamental reasons to be bullish as well. But resistance is coming up, and I do at least expect initial resistance from those levels. So those are my thoughts on the markets in general. Now, zooming into some altcoins here. Look, XRP, barely doing anything, unfortunately. And there's no independent momentum coming in either. So for XRP, look, if we're going to be able to break above 2.17, 2.2, and the Bitcoin dominance starts to top out, maybe then we can rally into 2.3. But I think other altcoins are more interesting. For example, Sui is rallying right here, leaving behind a lot of imbalances. But for Sui, main level to look at 2.45, 2.5. If we're able to get a break above that with volume and a retest, I would be on the conservative side and wait for that retest. This can easily rally into $2.93 again. When we're taking a look at Solana, we spoke about that this morning. If we're able to get that close above 144, 145 with volume again, and we hold that retest, we can easily get into 155 and 165. And that's the case for most altcoins. If we take a look at some volume, look, some other coins that are quite interesting right now, even though I would stick to the bigger coins, are something like Popcat. Like you can see, Fartcoin is also still very strong, but something like Popcat, for example, is also doing great here, trying to break above a major level here around 30 cents. This could be Fartcoin 2.0 if we're able to hold that retest. But because of those major resistance levels coming up for not only Bitcoin and others, I would be on the conservative side in you know, at least having some, like when you're taking a look at breakouts for altcoins. First of all, keep an eye on the volume, needs to be quite high. And second of all, wait for the retest, at least on lower time frames. All right. But those are my thoughts on the markets. I think that's everything I wanted to discuss. Hopefully it helps. I'll be back with more updates, like I said, when they're needed, even if that's tonight. But that's it for now. So thank you for watching. Take care and bye.